Hello viewers and welcome to another video looking at F1 2020 and in this video we're going to be looking a bit more at the Schumacher cars. We're going to be looking at the accessible handling and just other racing gameplay stuff. And we kick off here with a little bit of Hanoi. Of course, first time seeing cars racing together. We had obviously the time trial laps and a little bit of racing. We'll look at more of this later in the video. A couple of races, couple of circuits. Interesting circuit. I like the circuit actually. It's going to be quite tricky. It's got some high speed straights, some twisty sections. Oh, there's like you see me losing it there. And of course you have this long straight which at the end of it very heavy braking, and that's going to be where all the action takes place. I don't think there's many places to overtake. We'll wait and see when the final race happens one day. Unlikely of course in 2020 now. I don't think they're going to reschedule it. So you see action going to the hairpin side by side. Better on the outside there, but I just about managed to hold him off and continue on my way. And of course we'll be looking, of course, as well as the accessible handling later in the video, at the Schumacher cars, the addition this year, the various Schumacher cars that have been added to the game. I do like my classic cars, classic content, and of course every year there are minor changes to the handling, look and feel to it as well, though I haven't had enough time to necessarily go back and compare all the classic cars. I've very much enjoyed their addition since F1 2013 in particular, and you know, with the Mansell and the Jerez and all that sort of stuff back then. But this year it's the year of Michael Schumacher. So where to start then but to go back to 1991, Jordan 191. Michael at Spa. I did record a race at Spa. There was a reason we haven't been able to show that race, so we're just going to skip straight on with the lap time comparisons here. But this is a great looking Formula 1 car. It's clean, it's basic, it's classic, fantastic. And I've decided to pop it together with a replay here as well, going around Monza. I've used Monza as I normally do as my test circuit for looking at various performance of the various different cars. It has simple braking zones, easy to line the cars up within reason. So what do we have here? Lots of understeer. We have a car that doesn't have nearly as much downforce as modern cars. It has a lot of power, so you have to be careful in terms of, you know, acceleration out of corners. If you get on the power too early, there's only a certain amount of grip there, so you really need to be gentle until you've got the car where you need it. In some of these corners it's not quite as quick through there. That would normally be a much higher speed corner, but you really feel the speed differential in some of the sort of mid-speed corners. And again, I'm turning the car in early to make up for the sort of understeer that comes into it as you get on the throttle, pushing the car through the corner. Coming up towards the end of the lap through Ascari and on to the last straight before Parabolica. So getting used to it. Still a lot of speed to find. I wasn't anywhere near the limit of the car, but it takes a bit of time to maximize it. Great car, wonderful to see these cars. They're basic but true Formula 1 cars. You know, I look at a steering wheel and think that's all you should have in a Formula 1 car within reason, is a steering wheel and a couple of buttons. That's it. Now they're, you know, partially computer controlled by the guys back at base, really. Moving on then to the 90. We don't have the 93 Benetton. It's a shame because obviously they had a different paint scheme and everything else. But either way, we've moved on to 94 World Championship car. And I highlighted this in a video, actually, got my feelings on it, and some of you weren't very pleased, but there you go. I still feel that Michael cynically took out Damon Hill to win a championship, and there we have it. Now, onto the 94 car, the engine note changes. I'm talking, aren't I, in this video? That's because we're going to have a separate no comment run later. We may be able to put this up, actually, as a no comment video at some point. I'll find out about that. But in the meantime, commentated video content and racing rounds. So immediately feeling a bit more subtle grip, really. It's a much better car than the Jordan in every way. A bit more nimble through the corners, more controlled on the power. I find that there was around sort of fourth gear, surprisingly, there was a moment where the car was sliding quite a bit, and you need to be quite committed with this car to get a lot out of it. So you're getting on the power, and the car slides, and you can see on the exit there. I think the Ascari is a really good example of that. You have to commit to the second part of the corner. So you're coming up, you're braking, getting the car in quite slowly, and then you're gently on the power, and at some point you have to kind of nail it and then slide the car through the exit there. It's sliding a little bit there, but you really have to commit to the corner. Otherwise you're very progressive to a point that you're just losing speed. Again here I had a slightly different line, got on the power, and the car, despite being straight, is actually sliding through the corner despite the wheel being straight. I just literally put the foot down, and like you say, you reach that point. I say I'm not putting the foot all the way down, but I'm reaching the point of limit of grip where you're sort of sliding through the corner. So to get the most out of a car like this is tricky. There's more depth to it in terms of the driving required. The 95 Benetton, much more dominant year for Michael. This car, again, subtle changes. Shame we lose some of those brands off the car. You know, I know the developers are limited as to what they can do. I know it's been highlighted. Wouldn't it be nice if there was an 18 certificate DLC pack, and that we could have the cars as they were? I kind of would like to see that. I dislike the removal of logos and history in that sense. But either way, through those first couple of corners, a bit more grip every time. It's a bit more settled. The car is more progressive, and again, this time you're being a bit smoother. So you're not quite flooring the throttle in quite the same way as you might have in the earlier cars. You're being more progressive on the power. Progressive on the exit, a bit more tidy. So subtle changes every time, improving lap time. It's getting into the corner a little bit better. And again here turning in nice and early, but nice line through the corner, trying to keep the car straight, it's balancing the throttle on the exit. Much better, much better. I really enjoyed driving these two cars, by the way, these mid-90s cars. Thoroughly enjoyed driving these two, much more than the 91. I think the 91 Jordan wasn't necessarily the greatest. It was great, in terms of, I say great, I mean Michael managed to squeeze a lot out of it, but these cars really were great cars, and you can tell when you drive them. They're just more fun to drive, and it'd be great to have the entire roster of cars from those seasons. Wouldn't it be nice? But either way, round the final corner, over the line, that was much better. Enjoyed that car. I did a fair few laps in it actually, and managed to get more and more out of it. So made progress then, improvements. And then we see the huge seismic change, because 98 groove tyres, and again we see 2000 now. Michael was close in 98, 99, but 2000, you look at the detail on the Ferrari, the improvements in every way. I mean, we've moved from a very basic car with a Jordan, to something like this, far more advanced. Look at the buttons on the wheel now. I mean, we've gone from pretty much just the steering wheel itself to buttons and electronics, something that's much more like a modern F1 car. There was a seismic change in 98. For me, not a good one. I felt that the groove tyres put the entire reliance onto aerodynamic grip, and that meant there's only so much you can do. If you've got the technology to have better aerodynamics, then you're going to win. And Ferrari and Michael Schumacher and Ross Brawn were in a good place at this time. While Adrian Newey had departed McLaren and moved to Jaguar, and all this sort of stuff was going on, and it all sort of went a bit messy this year actually for him. There was a lot of unreliability in the car. So McLaren were the key rivals, of course, before BMW Williams came on in the next sort of couple of years as well, and we'll have a look at the 2004 car. But this car, more power, point and squirt, works well through the corners. Look how it's glued to the road now, unlike the earlier cars. This is where we're sort of moving much more to modern day styling, glued to the road, felt good, gently on the power through the corners, and there we go, around the final corner, and that felt good. That was a nice car. I enjoyed driving it. Good car to drive. No halo in the way. Wonderful. I feel like I can breathe in the car. No halo. I can see what I'm doing. Wouldn't it be nice if you could remove the halo when playing Formula One? It would be nice, will never happen, mind you. 2004, rocket ships of cars now, but look at the detail again. More wings, more detail, a lot of detail around the back end of the car, suspension area. Really nice to see, and these cars were very quick indeed, and you really do feel it's funny actually, the first chicane was actually quite challenging. In this car, it took me kind of took me by surprise. I span out about 4 times just going around the first corner, trying to understand when I could get on the power. So now through these corners, a lot of power in this car, so you really got to be very progressive until you feel some grip and then go for it. I'm not maximising my lap times here. I was struggling a little bit with this chicane. I would ordinarily like to nibble a bit more of it just to give myself a better exit, but I don't know where the correct point is without having my lap discounted at the moment, so not able to maximise the lap times. I still haven't quite got the steering where I want it, but either way, pushing hard, loving the different engine note of the cars, and great to see it. You know, it looks great in the replays as well. Just imagine how good it's going to look when we move to the next gen proper, new lighting, and it's gonna be there's so much to look forward to in the world of gaming and Formula One, and bringing these old cars back into it. I just hope they keep on pushing this and building a real package around it, you know, more than a gimmick, make it a proper mode. How many people out there are interested in something like this? As a police car goes by, there you go, London life as I commentate this. So that car's racing down, beautiful. Took my mind off it for a second. Now we've got a comparison, all the cars all across the line at the same time, away we go. So we can see a lap time comparison now of all the cars, and just the changes really in terms of the speed differential in terms of the different cars. Big difference between them. I mean, even first sector, they're leagues apart from each other. And it's quite funny, but on the leaderboards for the classic cars, they only have one leaderboard. So if you're not driving the 2004 car, you're never going to top the leaderboard, because it goes 10 seconds a lap quicker than the car 9 years earlier, or whatever, 13 years earlier. So I don't know if there is different leaderboards for different cars. It's possible, but certainly having so many different cars in one leaderboard, it just makes the leaderboard pointless at the moment, and it's just full of, if you want to get anywhere on the leaderboard, you just got to drive the much faster cars. But it would be nice if they do separate leaderboards. If I'm wrong, hopefully someone can let me know, because I haven't seen it, but there you go. But either way, really nice transition through Michael's career. You know, huge amount of victories, worked really well with Ross Brawn developing the car, and he was a driver who's ahead of his time, physically fit, mentally in the right place, understood the engineering in the car, understood the level of perfection required in every aspect, and a lot of what he did and studied impacted on Formula One and what it is to this day, and the success he had. And had he stayed in Formula One with the Mercedes team and him and Ross Brawn, he would no doubt have, you know, had 7 more world championships, you know, whereas Lewis took that seat and so on. There's no doubt to me that Michael would have gone on to succeed and was kicked out of Mercedes before his time. But there you go, that's another question for another day. Let's move on, take a look at a bit of Hanoi. So again, a bit of Hanoi, bit of racing. Didn't do much racing, I confess, but I thought, well, let's just have a muck around and show you a bit of Hanoi. And here we see just closing up on, where are we? Oh no, we're just we've got Lewis in front, and we've got Bottas behind, and I think I'm making a mistake somewhere, but either way, a bit of racing action around here, and just trying to close up. This is a tricky corner. This is the one corner on the whole lap I don't like. I get caught on a curb there, and it can spin you out really easy. You've got to back right out the power, but not entirely. You need to keep a little bit of wheel momentum there, otherwise you'll spin out completely. But either way, I lost track position there, and that's going to be vital. This straight is critical for braking, and it's going to be really hard to follow cars through this next section. So you get your brakes, stop on the inside, keep it as tight as possible. Really couldn't go any tighter than that. Very, very tight hairpin, not much room on the outside, and then through the twisty section. So this section's funny. You want to go quicker, but you really need to understand where the limits are and what's coming up. I'm going a bit wide here. I'm not preparing myself well for this next section. So lots to learn in terms of the appropriate speed and gears for these corners, and then round towards the final corner. I'm struggling a little bit with my steering. I still haven't got it exactly where I want it. So I'm not nibbling the apexes. I need more time to practice. I'm finding that the wheel rotation is a lot further as default this year than it should be. Normally the default, I have a 360-degree default, and it seems to be going a lot further. So I've had to increase my wheel sort of sensitivity by 10, and just the saturation a little bit, I think, by 2. But either way, just trying to give it the right feeling. I'm still working on my steering wheel feeling to get it right for me at the moment. But it's getting better all the time. I mean, it's not terrible. It's just not. I'm just not able to place the car where I want to place it at the moment, and it's something that would need a bit of practice. Whether I ever get time to do that, we will wait and see. So I'm determined now. I've got to get ahead of Valtteri and see if I can make the move, and then we'll see if we can do it at the end of another lap. And Sebastian's right behind me. So what I'm doing is because it's a new track and I haven't put that much time into it, I'm watching the car in front. I'm looking at when he brakes. I'm looking at his line through the corners, and it helps me to adapt in a similar way. It does remind me when I think of how good the top players are on this these days. That's one of the reasons why I'm not doing tons of laps on it. When I used to make these videos years ago, I used to do several race distances and get to a point where, I could do relatively high difficulty settings, but these days I'm leaving that all to the expert sort of esport players now who want to put days and weeks of their life into it. For me, it's more a case of jumping on, running a few laps and just getting the basics here. But I can see, like here, double apex, essentially it's never-ending corner, getting it in tight there. That gives you a better run on the exit. Really important here that you get a good run and the DRS along here. It doesn't seem to be as much of an overtaking zone. If someone's on the inside and they brake late, I just don't see, like there, it compromised my exit. I think in real life I can imagine the car on the inside just braking late and you just not getting past at all. I think you'll use that DRS to close up, and then this DRS, if you can stay close enough to actually do the overtaking, depending on the condition of your tyres. So it's going to be interesting to see how this circuit comes together. But either way, I've enjoyed the running so far, and it's good to have something new in the game. Always helps the developers. They've got a couple of new tracks as well. And so from the sunny climates of the Vietnam Grand Prix, we move to more sunny climates as it happens over here with Zandvoort as well. Coming back to the world of Formula One, track that I've enjoyed driving online, a track with a lot of history to it, and clearly some changes made to get the modern cars working on a banked cornered circuit, which we haven't seen in this style for some time, obviously since Indy. And back then, of course, you'll have remembered the fiasco with the 6 cars and the tyre war between Bridgestone and Michelin. And Bridgestone didn't provide certain information required, and of course it ended up a bit of a nightmare. Not so a problem this time. Pirelli will be more than ready, probably with special tyres for this type of track. And it's interesting to see racing on it for the first time as well. Now, one of the things we talked about as running the circuit was it's nice to drive. It's very technical, lots of different styles of corners, very enjoyable to drive. In some respects, it kind of reminds me of the Hungaro ring in the sense that it's very small, very tight, and twisty sections. We've got a couple of high-speed straights, but outside of that, it's very twisty. As I brake a bit late there, that was actually I missed the braking point. I didn't know where the braking point was, and now I've realised, lost track position there. Lando won't be happy, and now I'm going to have to fight my way through. But as I say, still learning the lap here. I've just jumped in cold as usual, and I thought let's just learn on the fly. So the only chance to overtake will be this start-finish straight, but even here you can see without DRS, impossible. So you're going to need DRS to overtake. I find another part of the circuit is actually easier. I wasn't actually doing that great into turn one. I thought that was going to be the core overtaking area, but on this, I think we do have a bit of a daring overtake later past Carlos, but it's not the easiest place to overtake at all. I think we knew that anyway. If there's anything, you know, games provide an idea to the teams as to how the real race could turn out. And I'm just driving around. I've settled down a bit after that first lap. You always have the craziness of the first lap, and then you really need to settle down and look at, you know, what you can do to try and improve your position and where you can find opportunities to maximise, let's say, protect your tyres, protect your car. Is it all going to be about the start finish straight? So getting off the final corner is critical. I was losing a bit of ground through that final corner, which meant and then closing a lot under braking into turn one, not able to make it. So you really need to get well off the final corner. You're very close in the car in front. Around here, I tried around the outside. There's no way around the outside there. It's always a never ending, it's always a sort of a closing gap. And so I find that this is a section here, sweep into, if you can carry speed through this section, you can get up on the inside. I had a little touch there. You wouldn't want to do that in real life, but managed to get away with it. Damage is on. I think it was just minor, but it would come up if I did it again as damaging the front wing. So right, well, let's be a little bit more careful. And again here with the braking. This braking here was just a little bit earlier than I expected in the race, which is always slightly different to when you're playing in the time trial mode where you've got sort of an optimum speed car. Now this corner here, again mid-apex, don't get on the power too early. I was too early on the power, so again lost ground. Learning all the time. You know, every time you come round, you're learning something new about a corner here, corner there, looking for an opportunity. And what have we got in front there as well? We've got Max Verstappen just ahead of Carlos. And he's looking for a way past as well, trying to go around the outside again. I thought, can I get enough ground? No, I just can't. As much as I seem to be alongside halfway through that apex, I just can't get enough speed around the outside to win the corner. So here we go again. I think, well, let's carry some speed through here. And I'm not saying you could do that in real life, but it just, it was very close. I tried to just keep it tight on the inside and managed to get away with it. So I don't think you'd be able to do that in real life. I think maybe you could if you had different tyres. Again, you see I touched the curb on the inside there. You don't want to do that. That can really unbalance the car, lose you a lot of speed. And once you get into a rhythm, it's going to be very, very difficult to get past anyone. This could be a race like Monaco in many respects, where, you know, it doesn't have the walls right next to the car, but unless you can follow through a corner like this perfectly, you know, and close up, you're going to find it a great struggle making your way up through the pack. Again, working my way round. And we've got, is that Grosjean there, of course, in front, and Max is past. Now, that remains just in the way there. Get out of the way. So I'm looking for one of my overtake opportunities here, but I got it slightly wrong. I didn't quite get the car where I wanted to get it. I didn't have the time. You've really got to be alongside. It was a risky move before. It was my teammate. He let me through. And this time I don't think I'm going to get an opportunity. But I do focus a lot more on the end of the lap this time. And I focus on, well, let's see how close we can keep through this final corner. His speed's a bit all over the place here, actually. Okay, so you keep it tight, gently on the power, use your energy, DRS, everything you've got. Just up on the inside, and there we go, we got up on the inside. So that shows you can get up on the inside and the racers inevitably will. So turn 1 then likely to be the only place. Still not easy at turn 1 to overtake, but there might be an opportunity somewhere for the odd late braking somewhere in the lap. We'll have to wait and see on that.
The Mercedes team pulled out a fantastic performance today. They should be proud. And talk to me. What do you think it was that sealed the win for them?
Well, I know it's a bit of a boring answer, but the truth is they simply had the best speed package on the day, and a driver who knows how to take advantage of that. It doesn't matter how much time you spend poring over the stats and planning strategies if you can't keep the pace, and our winner today showed they could do both.
After an excellent performance at the Grand Prix, I'm sure there'll be plenty of celebrations tonight amongst the Mercedes team, and they certainly deserve it.
So there you have it, the improved podium sequence every time. Now it's time for a look at the accessible handling. Now, accessible handling, let's think about this for a second. I actually tried it with the wheel first. I know it's not strictly designed for the wheel, but I was just interested to see how it worked with the wheel. And what I found was really strange was how the wheel got a mind of its own. So I thought I could try it with my fingers. There's no force feedback in the wheel. However, there is force feedback in the direction it thinks you should drive in at certain times. So you can see the wheel turn for the next corner on its own. And it's quite, I just thought it was fascinating. I drove around for a bit with this, and it's almost steering itself to an extent. And sometimes the wheel would turn left and the car would turn right. It will actually ignore what the steering wheel's doing, even though the steering wheel is the primary control device. So you see there the wheel swung on its own into the next corner. And I'm helping it coast in that sense. And I'm slowing down a bit, seeing what happens when I reset the wheel. And you can see the wheels are a bit all over the place. And again, it's maggots and beckets and the different complexes into the hanger straight there. See the wheel turn, preparing for the corner. The wheel's turning on its own, preparing for the next corner, and it turns early for the corner as well. So, and again, it's saying for the next corner already, which is interesting. I thought it was interesting to see the assist. Let's face it, most of you watching this channel won't be using assists, but they're really important for gamers who are new to the game. This was quite interesting as well. It turns all the way left, but you'll note the car's turning right, even though I've got full lock to the left. That's quite interesting, isn't it? So that was fascinating to see. Let's have a go, I thought, with the controller and see how it works with the controller. So I tried with the controller. I just plugged the controller in. Now the controller starts with the control device, but as you can see, the wheel was still plugged in. So the wheel does its thing while I'm driving around. Turned out to be absolutely impossible, but was quite funny. And it sent the car absolutely everywhere. The wheel went absolutely crazy. Suffice to say, you want to unplug your wheel. So I immediately realised, this isn't working. I'm going to unplug my wheel. Right, that's that sorted, and try again. So this is really how you should test it, but I was just keen to see how the wheel responded. So using the new casual handling, assisted steering, all assists on, and having a drive around. Now the good thing about this is, for those of you who are new to Formula One, it gets more people into it. You wouldn't believe how difficult a lot of people find it playing a game like this. How impossible. Wall of difficulty. They just can't do it. Generally, they're not going to put much time into it. So you need something that's going to help them get into it more. And this is the opportunity now to get those people into it, give them the assists they need to get some fun and enjoyment out of it without having to learn the courses, learn the gears, and really know what they're doing. They just want to feel like they're heroes, drive around for a bit and feel like a Formula One driver. And in that sense, it's interesting. I thought, well, what's the point of reference, really? I thought the point of reference, really, for me was, let's go back, let's drive for a bit of this. Now let's turn off the assisted steering. Let's just do standard but with all assists turned on, and let's see what it's like with this. I actually found it more fun to play with just the standard steering and all the assists on, but that's because I play Formula One, so it's difficult to know until you see someone who really doesn't have a clue. What I mean by that though is that if you take here, we're going around flat out through here now, we'll go flat through this corner. Okay, so we're coming up to a braking point at the end of this straight. I'll have a brake marker that I'll brake for, so I'll brake, but the computer will brake as well. What it means is that the car's going to brake way more than I normally would, and then it oversteers into a corner, and then for me it feels odd. I feel all over the place with it. I kind of have to almost forget to brake for a corner and then let the game do it, if you like, let the game drive it for you. So in terms of steering, I felt more settled this way for me. So I think it's going to be a toss-up between the two. I think you really need to test it on some absolute beginners. It's very difficult to gauge how well it will work for some people than others. But either way, I thought gradually let's and then I went back to the wheel actually, and I just thought let's see what all the assists are like with the wheel for a moment. So with the wheel, it's very easy with the assists. You know, the cars are glued to the road, it never slides around, the brakes, everything works really well, and you can still feel like a badass even though you've got all the assists on. You can still enjoy it and drive it and feel like you're actually doing it. So I mean, you'd be surprised, there's a lot of people with controllers who are not great, and there are a lot of people with controllers who are amazing at these games, and there's a lot of people with wheels who buy the best equipment you can buy because they think the wheel makes them faster, and they're not that good at it, so they need a bit of help. And in this sense, you know, it does everything for you. You know, it sort of half drives the car, and you can feel like, again, you're racing heroes. And I found this worked really easily. So the assists are good that they've got. Controller play and assists are always good from Codemasters. I think no doubt there. It's good that they're trying something new to get more people into it. But I found my results a little bit inconclusive. I think I found that I just like playing it standard with all assists turned on, and that worked just fine for me. But I'm sure Codemasters have done a lot of testing. You really do need to test it with a group of people who haven't played Formula One, perhaps don't even know the racetracks, and then just see how they get on. Because a lot of the time when people play racing games, they get flustered with the speed, and then they don't hit the braking point, they fly straight into the wall because it all gets on top of them basically. So in actual fact, racing is quite a calm experience in many respects. You're looking at one point and that you're just doing one action at a time. It feels like there's a lot going on, but there really isn't. So I'm just coming to the end of this session. I did a race with assists on. Then after that I thought, well, let's do a race with assists off. Let's run it again. It's always good for reference, you know, to give you feedback. I've always found I need to know what it's like with assists on, with assists off. What difference does it make? Is that good? Is that bad? What am I referencing that against? So then we turn the assists off, or not all of the assists, but most of the assists off. And you know, for me, I'm immediately back at home. The car kind of comes to life again as soon as you turn off the assists. It is amazingly stable with the assists turned on, as it's supposed to be. But with all of these, you know, experiences, as soon as you turn off the assists, the car becomes a bit more alive. At the point of making this video, I still need to do more testing, get my wheels set up. I would need to do more traction testing with all assists off and ABS off. Various different braking just to see how things work, and I'd need to look at 2019 again to remind myself as to how things were and where certain things have moved forward. But in terms of the past few years, I mean, if I said to you that my favourite version was F1 2013, and then we've been on a journey since then of, for me, rear traction issues, very spinny wheels. I've not liked the feeling of traction. I've not liked the feeling of the tarmac under the car, the feeling of grip, the feeling of resistance from the force feedback, the style of driving. All of this has been improved every year, I don't feel I need to opposite lock into a corner and get on the power and slide the car through constantly. There's a nice limit where you get a rotation in the car with the sliding over the surface, which is nice. And that means that finding the limit of driving requires an awful lot of practice for those top players who really know the track limits and know the small things that give them an advantage. That's the stuff they'll never share with you, obviously, but there's little things that they'll learn, techniques that they apply to it. Nice to see the replays. I've added the replay to the corner of a few of these videos. I always think adding a TV replay is great. Adds so much when you think of where we've come. Replay's getting better all the time. You know, there's, like you say, long cameras at the end of straights. Graphically, it all handles it pretty well. There's a couple of long straights where the frame rate seems to struggle a little bit, but on the whole, it's running pretty well. And as I say, we move to the next generation, and a lot of the issues that you've had in this gen just won't be an issue anymore, or they shouldn't be, with the extra power available. At least you'll be able to place cameras, and you know, then I guess it's however they work the detail and LODs and lighting and all the rest of it in terms of replays. But it looks great. Something else I quite liked as well was the lighting changes as clouds move across the course. You know, 1 minute you're under a cloud driving along, and then the sun comes out, and it gives it a very authentic feel of being at Silverstone, which, you know, really adds to it. You see there the edge of the cloud and then into the daylight. It's very authentic. It's just, I think I've always found that with Silverstone. You've always had that. It's flat, big flat area, and because it's so open like that, you really do see those transitions. You saw it a lot with courses years ago, like you say in Hockenheim, because of the forest, you used to have rain on one part and it could be dry on the other. It's nice with some of the old courses that were a bit longer, a bit more laid out. And look forward to having the British Grand Prix this year as well. 2 British Grand Prix potentially, so apparently confirmed at the moment, but you never know with the world of Formula 1. And it depends what other tracks we get on the calendar as well. Certainly there's hopes for other circuits to be added to the mix. So I'm closing up on these guys, determined to get into the racing action. And the Renault obviously doesn't have the performance of some of the other cars, but somehow here, I don't know what the setting was, clearly too easy, because I wouldn't be able to, if I had it set to normal, I don't think I'd be able to compete that well with some of these cars. You do get a bit more understeer. I mean, you notice the nuances of the different cars are as you'd expect them to be, you know, based on top speed and downforce. A little bit of contact with Mercedes there, and I lost a lot of time with the cars in front thanks to that as well. Lewis Hamilton not wanting to let me bite. Getting quicker every lap though. As I say, I didn't know the braking points, and every lap getting quicker and quicker. So I know a lot of you are looking forward to getting your hands on this as well in July. And I should put a bit more time into the Schumacher cars as well. I did very much enjoy driving those mid-90s cars. They are simple. That wasn't intentionally late braking. It was a bit of a naughty Ricardo dive there, but somehow we're through, and now we're going to be on to Vettel. See if we can close up. It's great seeing a replay coverage in the corner there. Proper TV coverage, but not enough time, I think, in this race to make up a lot of ground. Go down the Hangar straight. Long time since I first went to a Grand Prix at the circuit. It's changed a lot over the years. Much better facilities than we had years ago. I mean, seeing those 90s cars, a lot of this was just rolling fields and the toilet every mile or so. Portaloo. All this was just grassy hills around here. I always felt this was kind of a drab part of the circuit, even though it's the part where I usually ended up. It's because there was action into that chicane, so it's good to see. And when you go to Grand Prix and you're visiting races, you know, it's good to have a mix of different views. If you can see, oh, somehow through on the inside, he was so slow. It wasn't my fault. There we go. It's his fault. It's his fault. Yeah, it's good if you get to go to Grand Prix. At least, you know, at certain corners you're going to see overtaking, and at others you get to see the cars going at high speed. And it's nice to see, you know, some circuits when you can get wheel-to-wheel driving at high speed. Really adds to the whole action of a Grand Prix weekend when you can get your way around the circuit. I mean, through that corner, fantastic change in direction when you see the cars going through crops. And again, I've been here as well. This is a bit more of a hill than it looks. I wish you could see the cars coming up here, but sometimes get some instance here on the exit. Cars do push really hard because it's so important to get down this straight as quickly as possible. And of course I lost a little bit of momentum there. That's allowed the Ferrari to get past. Mercedes right behind me, trying to find the opportunity, covering the inside because I know there might be a lunge. And I thought, no, let's take it nice and smooth through the exit. And that concludes this race, and that concludes this coverage on F1 2020. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and there'll be more. I'll leave you with a bit of Ant and David Croft to discuss the end of the race, and there'll be more from me very soon.
And Mercedes have pulled off a great victory here today. Ant, talk to me. What do you think it was that sealed the win for them?
Well, I honestly feel it was down to the driver and car today. I mean, we can talk driver skill all day, but if you don't have a solid team to back that, you're never going to get anywhere. When you hit that sweet spot of having both an excellent driver and an incredible car, that's when you see results like those we witnessed today.
Mercedes are on top form once again after an excellent race weekend. It's great to see them up on that podium once again.
Thanks for watching today, viewers. I hope you enjoyed the video, and do like and subscribe. It supports what we do. You can go to the website directly above me here, or check out a couple of other videos on the channel, perhaps things you're interested in terms of racing games, whether it be new or retro. It's all there. Check them out.